Hello and welcome to the final episode of this season's VRTV. My name is Zena. We've seen many awesome interviews over the past few episodes, and I can promise that this episode will be just as great. Joining me is Alex Voika of Imagination Technologies to talk about mobile VR, and I will also be taking to the road with Make Real and McDonald's. First up, it's the news roundup. Microsoft has plans to redefine mobile VR with its latest idea of flashback. And although there aren't many images of the HMD, it's still pretty exciting news as it intends to scrap real-time rendering for a more efficient experience to bridge the gap between PC and mobile VR. During this year's Unite Europe event, Unity revealed the latest updates for its game development engine so that you can make VR from within VR. Developers will be able to create VR whilst being immersed, which gets rid of all the fiddling around. And there's also a new play mode that switches you into the game while you develop it. And finally, the much anticipated title Superhot will be making its way to the virtual screen by the end of this year. The studio is planning on taking full advantage of the VR capabilities, and they explained how they're creating immersive sound so that the player can know when a bullet is coming from behind without looking. For more on those stories and others, check out vrfocus.com. But now, here is Alex to talk about Power VR. I'd like to welcome my first guest, Alex Voika from Imagination Technologies. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
You described Imagination Technologies as the mobile version of NVIDIA and AMD. What makes it so unique as a mobile graphics GPU?
Right, so Imagination Technologies started in the 1990s. We were initially focused on consoles and PCs. We were in the first Dreamcast, the Sega Dreamcast, but then we refocused towards mobile. So now today, Imagination is a global semiconductor company. We license GPUs and other processors that end up in devices like this. So if you have an iOS or an Android device, it's very likely that it has a Power VR GPU. Over time, we've optimized our architecture for low power consumption, which is an essential requirement of mobile devices, as well as sustained performance. So we give you the best performance at the lowest power consumption.
And one of the features is real-time rendering, is that right? So how would that work?
Yeah, so one of the unique features of our GPU architecture is something called tile-based defer rendering. So what that means is the GPU will split the screen into small multiple screens, and then it will render only the elements that are visible on screen. So that saves you a lot of memory bandwidth, it saves you a lot of power, and initially just improves the performance of the system.
You spoke a lot about VR in your latest blog post, The Knowns and Unknowns of Virtual Reality, which was very interesting to read. And you made a point of the PC VR graphics being much more powerful, much better than mobile graphics right now for virtual reality. Yes. How is Imagination Technologies trying to bridge that gap, and how fast would you be able to do that?
Right, so I was making a point in my blog article that the install base of the PC and the desktop and the consoles is, although very important, is quite small compared to mobile devices. The problem that you have with mobile devices is you're always limited by the battery life, you're limited by the power consumption, because they have a very limited battery life. So therefore, my point was that if VR is going to be successful, you need to look beyond just the desktop and the console world and breach into mobile. But right now, mobile devices, not all mobile devices have the performance required to do VR at an acceptable frame rate.
When you say mobile VR, do you necessarily just mean the mobile device, or would it go beyond mobile devices?
Yeah, it goes beyond mobile devices. So we've seen, for example, from China, various companies now who are actually embedding the chips inside the VR headset. So you're no longer needing a mobile device. You just have the headset as a standalone device. It runs a version of Android, and you just have all the games and all the applications installed just like you would do on a normal mobile device. So instead of slotting in your smartphone into the VR or tethering it through your console or desktop PC, you can basically just have a standalone VR headset with its own chip and its own processing power. That's one trend that we're seeing. The other trend that we're seeing is adding more intelligence to headsets in terms of tracking, in terms of their vision processing, to actually be able to not only be a very accurate representation of the world that you're seeing, but also of the world around you. So for example, you would have a camera that's attached to the back of the headset, and the camera would be able to track your hands. So you no longer need the controls to hold them. The headset would do that for you. So all these things that companies are doing to basically ensure that you have a better VR experience.
Is this something that you're investing in yourself at Imagination Technologies?
So obviously we're very well known for our PowerVR GPUs, and those have been very popular. But lately we've been developing some other technologies that are related to the GPU, which is the vision processor. So we have a vision processor that you can embed in the chip. So you can have multiple cameras, and those multiple cameras can do all sorts of interesting algorithms that can track your hands or track or recognize objects. So yeah, we're doing a lot of things that are connected to VR, but also connected to mobile in general, that are not just necessarily graphics, but are related now to vision and artificial intelligence.
So it's always easier to talk about consumer type graphics cards, but how is this going to work out for developers if they want to develop mobile-based experiences or games for VR?
Right, so we actually have a community on our website. If you go to community.imgtech.com, you can find an SDK for PowerVR GPUs that contains examples, contains documentation. We're also releasing a lot of tools that have to do with performance analysis and optimization. So we're actually working with a lot of developers, not just in VR, but in developing graphics applications in general, to help them optimize their applications for our GPUs.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Next, I will be checking out McDonald's latest campaign where they go on a VR roadshow with the help of the developers of Radial G. I got to sneak into Make Real Studio where I met up with Sam Watts of Make Real, who you may recognize as a developer for the VR game Radial G. And he spoke to me about the latest project involving the Great Golden Arches.
Make Real is our main serious fun learning and development company, and Tamika Games is our sister company spin-off for creating the Radial G franchise. We work with Oculus to provide to McDonald's because it was around the same time as the actual units were being launched. They brought us on board to act as one of many technology specialists to create a immersive virtual reality series of experiences to promote the agricultural and farming side as part of a campaign they have called Farm Forward.
And what are these experiences that you've made?
We created 3 in total. One is actually a touchscreen based skills quiz, but the 360-degree videos are the next step up to give a behind-the-scenes look, and the hero VR piece that's made a lot of noise is the virtual farming simulator where you are driving a tractor harvesting potatoes.
And of course that's, as you say, the hero piece. It's the most interesting part, but it's very unlike Radial G.
Other than the fact that they are both driving experiences, there are a lot of technical challenges as well, because the virtual reality experience is now being installed on a 13-metre a custom-built articulated lorry that will go around the various countryside and agricultural shows. When you're developing against a big physical truck being made at the same time, you need to get the design nailed in terms of all the external booth elements at the same time to make sure that all the PCs are going to fit and there's enough power, and the actual tractors can then fit inside the truck when it needs to drive to the next event, etc.
And what kind of experience can the players get? Is quite a slow paced?
It has to be fairly slow paced. They specifically wanted something that was realistic and representative of farming and the particular potato harvesting. We co-designed it with a series of young progressive farmers, but we actually had real farmers from McCain come down and test it to make sure that it was a realistic, representative experience of harvesting potatoes. But also at the same time, because of the nature of bouncing across the field, we didn't want anything too fast. I mean, tractors don't go that fast, but in order to ensure keeping low nausea rates and comfort factor, we reduced the centre of gravity and made sure that it was as comfortable as possible for as many people as possible, because it's a public event. The youngest user was 5, who had their own tractor, who got a very high score, who berated me for not having some particular gear levers. Mid-March was sort of early tests with the McCain potato farmers, and they of course came down and did everything that we didn't expect, which was not sit forward looking at the steering wheel. They were straight over looking over their shoulder, because that's how they do it. But they got top 5 scores, first time never having used VR before, so we knew that we were on to a winning formula straight away. Who was a farmer and who wasn't in those particular fields, pardon the pun, because they would do the straight over looking over the left shoulder rather than facing forward.
Before I head off to the Bath and West show, I'm going to give Top of the Crop a little try in the studio. I could definitely see what Sam meant by looking over your shoulder to help, although I did have to pay extra attention not to run over the crops or the birds. Despite the game not being a high-speed racer, the pure concentration and learning how to balance gentle acceleration with caring for your precious potatoes kept me happily occupied. But before I do any more damage, let's go over to the Bath and West show.
Ilminster Young Farmers Club, another of our young...
It may not look like McDonald's or VR may fit into this scene, but the attraction could not be denied. With some almost having a surreal out-of-body experience.
It was quite creepy because I was chasing a van and I accidentally hit a magical piece of wood.
And others genuinely surprised by how immersed they were.
It made you feel like you're actually crashing into a tractor. Weirdest thing I've done in a long time.
And some weren't quite convinced and just wanted to stick to what they knew. Have you tried virtual reality before?
No.
Is it something that you'd want to try?
No. Stay on farmer.
The crowds here are absolutely bustling, and for most of the visitors, it has been their first experience using the Oculus Rift and Gear VR. McDonald's has left a lasting impression on these people, and I'm pretty sure they'll continue to as they travel through the country. And sadly, that's pretty much it from VRTV for now, but you can expect us to return this autumn. In the meantime, I would love to hear your suggestions on how to make this show better for you guys. So please leave comments below and tweet me at XenaVRFocus, leaving suggestions, either interviews, how to set up, the whole shebang. You can also keep an eye out for another video series this summer on vrfocus.com. But for now, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time.